Eddie B. Swift is in the building.
Yes, sir.
What's good, family?
I feel like I've never been here before.
Well, you were home team before you walked in here, you know what I'm saying? So
You already know, man. First and foremost, man, before we start off anything, I want to thank both you and your brother for the hospitality y'all showed me since I stepped up down here. I mean,
there's definitely been love since day one, so we appreciate you too, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I want to take it back a little bit for the people that don't know how we met and how all this started.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So I'll tell you my recollection of it, and then you can correct me if I mess it up. We've known Point Blank, you know what I'm saying, out here in Orlando.
PV, you already know.
Yes, sir, radiosmash.net, you know what I'm saying? We've known Point Blank for a minute. And he, you know, he does his show. He does a Friday show. It's called the Flashback at Noon. You know what I'm saying? And he decided to do a 10-hour mix marathon.
Yes, sir.
And he reached out to us, you know what I'm saying? He was like, yo, come through, rock with me, you know what I'm saying? 10 hours, 10 DJs, we're going to kill this. Orlando, you know what I'm saying? Come together and show people where it's at. So we went through, you know what I'm saying? And then the word that we got from Point was, yo, Eddie B wants to talk to you. And you know us, we were like, Eddie B? You know what I'm saying? Like we obviously knew who you were, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Your name precedes you.
Thank you.
And you know, I like I told you when we first spoke, I'm not gonna front, it was a little intimidating.
I have no idea because I'm probably about as normal as they come, man. Like, for real, if anything, I be in awe of you guys, man. Like, for real, like, it's crazy how in Orlando in general, man, there's so much dopeness out here, but everybody's just so ununified. And I would wish, man, there was more unification, man. I would have never left if it was like this when I was here. I would have never left.
Well, we were talking the other night with Smiles about the crabs in a bucket mentality that lives out here among MCs and even DJs, and we're just trying to reverse the trend, you know what I'm saying, or at least do our part.
Thankfully, you guys is out here. You, PB, Infrared, man. I mean, all you brothers out here, man. SPS, man. X144, Stranger, Varus. You know, I mean, all you guys, man. I mean, like I said, I wish this happened before, but it's happening now, and it's a good look. You know what I'm saying?
So, yo, let me go back to the beginning. I'm gonna just go back to the beginning of Eddie B. Swift. So, for anybody that's been under a rock that never heard the name, were you originally from New York?
I'm originally from the Bronx, born and raised, and migrated to the South in 2004.
2004. Now, how did you get started DJing in New York?
We go back to what, 1985 it was.
Okay.
Like my last year of high school before I dropped out.
That's Run DMC era?
Yes. Well, I mean, I was breakdancing. I was hanging out with Crazy Legs and all of those people. I mean, wasn't down with Rocksteady, but, you know, it's kind of like, you know, with the family and all that. We grew up together. And, you know, after the breakdancing phase was kind of like moving to the left, they had, you know, it was either you sold drugs or, you know, you went into like freestyle music. Because at that time, like, people was doing the Webo thing, you know. So, you know, I couldn't front, you know, like that wasn't my thing. You know, I was jerseys and spot builds. I wasn't black suede boots with you know, with white tight pants and the feathers in the back of my neck. I couldn't do that, you know. But I went to a party that my man was throwing. His name was John J. I'll never forget it. Ecuadorian kid, ugly as shit, but like, you know, he had every chick in his house. Like, he did a party in his house, and he had these two turntables. They weren't 12s. I think they were like SLB1 straight arms. And he was rocking, and I'll never forget. I was kind of like in awe, and not because, you know, what he was doing, was the attention he was getting. I was like, wow, this ugly bastard has just got like every chick in here checking him out. Like, you know, like he was like, you know, the president back in those days. So, you know, the attention intrigued me because, you know, as a breakdancer, as a b-boy, as anybody in the hip-hop culture would attest to, the attention that you get is what drives you to be better than what you were the day before.
Right.
So seeing him in that light, man, I was like, man, this is like, that was my calling. I was always a record collector because, you know, back in the days, you know, kids collected Tonka trucks and metal roller skates. You know, I collected 45s.
Okay.
I lived right up the block from a record store, so, you know, I had my collection in place already.
Do you remember the first record you bought?
Yes, it was the Osmond Brothers, One Bad Apple.
One Bad. Now, why that genre and not like a hip hop record?
Because it was like 1974, I think it was. I don't think hip hop had really gained its ground yet. You know, I know Fatback had dropped their joint, you know, in the 70s, but in the Bronx back in those days, they didn't have FM. It was like AM was the main frequency, and I used to listen to WABC, and that's where I used to hear all of the stuff. The Bay City Rollers, the Osmonds, the Jacksons, and that's pretty much where my 45 collection derived from.
Okay, so this was before you actually saw somebody rocking on turntables.
Oh yeah, I didn't see the whole turntable aspect actually till I saw my man. Like, I knew of DJs, I mean, everybody knows the Kool Herc stories, and I lived right up the block from Bronx River. I used to live up there in Elder Ave, and the whole Bronx River Project thing, I was always there. I was playing ball out there, so the chance to see Jazzy J out there, and Bambaataa, and Jimmy Jazz, and all of these cats wow, Star Child, like these are guys that I came up on.
Okay.
And seeing them in the park rocking, it was great. When I was a B-boy, so that was my thing, but then the whole aspect, kind of phased out, and I caught a liking into that whole DJ thing. So
I guess what I wanted to ask was if you remember what record you first put on turntable.
My first record I put on the turntable was IOU Freeze.
IOU Freeze. Okay.
And I'll never forget the record I mixed it with too, because it was done at the end of a house party. I do a party in my house just so my boy can bring his turntables over, and I knew he would get drunk because his name was DJ Drunk Something. And he, but by the time the night was over, he was gone. So I figured this might be my chance now, and I put the record on, and I happened to like that record, and I pulled out Art of Noise Beatbox.
Okay.
And I attempted to mix it, and it was probably the worst mix I think anybody could ever put together. It was just like so. I had no connection of any count or anything. I just put it on and I threw it on, and I felt like I was rocking. I'm bouncing my foot, I'm bopping my head. That's where the original EBS bounce started from.
Okay.
But my shit was all fucked up because when you're trying to bounce to a bad mix, you're all like convulsing and the neck was hurting. So that was the beginning and end of that, and actually was almost the end of my DJ career.
Why?
Because you don't get too many chances to make a first impression.
Okay.
And even though people was drunk and all of that, to have to see these people. This is my own house, and niggas is talking about your head, man. I think it's time for you to go to sleep. Your pops is calling you, like, I almost got really discouraged, but thankfully I ain't listened to nobody. It just made me work harder.
All right, so you decided to buy your first set, your first turntables, all that?
Yes, pair of Gemini 101s.
Nice.
They were $65 at Rockin' Soul, and they matched my Gemini 2200 mixer. I really didn't start off as a hip-hop DJ, to tell the truth.
Right.
Because at that time, hip-hop was really in its infancy, and it was more like it was real centered, man. Like, it was like real exclusive. You just couldn't listen to hip-hop. You had to be down with them. You had to be a part of those jams. You really had to be a part of that whole movement. And, you just couldn't be on the outside trying to get in, as a DJ. Part of those DJs' lore was, the collection that they had and stuff like that. So, my only hip-hop record I had probably was Rapper's Delight, just like everybody else and shit.
Right. What I know, what you've told me, you were the first DJ on Hot 97.
Right. What happened was Ricky Ricardo, I used to work in a store called SOS and DJ Specialty in Castle Hill.
Okay.
And they used to do in-stores. Hot 97 at the time was a freestyle station. And they used to do in-stores, and Ricky Ricardo, Angie Martinez, Dennis Calderon, who turned out to be Big Dennis, they would come. They were interns, and Angie used to answer phones for them. She was a chick, was working for free, answering the phones during the ticket giveaways and stuff. And Dennis was just Ricky Ricardo's driver. So anyway, they came down, and he was like, "Yo, you ever want to come hang out? Let us know." So we went to the radio station. And after a while, I found out, Ricky Ricardo was into certain things. Now, without putting too much 411 out there, let's just say, I became a supporter of his, so to speak. And I was going to Hot 97 pretty much on a weekly basis. And usually on the weekends, they had like Mixmaster type things where they had Tony Humphries coming up there, but they were like pre-recorded mixes from the clubs that he was rocking at. And let's just say Ricky Ricardo one time went to the bathroom and didn't come back in time. And they had a cart system at that time. So he had set up the carts, but I didn't know what buttons to press. All I knew was how to press start and stop on a turntable, and there was a set there because they just had Mixmaster Weekend there. So I ran into the booth because I knew it was active because he showed me that button. and I went and I put on a couple of records. Now, you know, the man was stuck in the bathroom. I think, you know, he had bad tacos or something. And I was playing like 3 records. All of a sudden, he came running into there, and like he was like, yo, what did you do? But the phone lines had lit up immensely because, you know, when they tell you at a radio station, if you're the 70th caller, you know, you'll know that. Like, how do you know you're the 70th caller? I'm going to tell you, they had a phone system that had 100 buttons on them. And if they said the 97th caller, when that button lit up, that was how they knew who that caller was. That line was lit, and it was lit for like about an hour straight. The program director called and asked them, like, what the, like, they was like, yo, are you drunk? Are you high? Like, what the hell's going on? Because, you know, again, this is FCC regulated now. You know, I learned a lot about the way things were played on radio and so forth.
Right.
And they were real interested in the reaction that became because of it. So in the upcoming weeks after that, they were interjecting little by little some hip hop, and I would go up there to play records, you know, but I never got any recognition for it. They wouldn't say Eddie B. Swift on the mix. They would just say Ricky Ricardo. You know, it was his show. And sort of, you know, they were going to change the format over to urban music. That's what they were calling it, because Kiss and BLS was getting out of the whole hip hop genre, was going to go to more like an adult contemporary type station.
Right.
Chuck Chillout, who had just left Kiss and went to BLS, was out of a job and found out about it and put himself in the running. So basically, it was me and Chuck Chillout, the finalists for the Hot 97 job.
Okay.
So that particular night, you know, there was a meeting there, and I was supposed to play this club called Club 2000, and I didn't show up. So Funkmaster Flex was brought in to DJ that night. Chuck Chillout had the meeting before me and went up there and found out that they were going to give me the job before he even interviewed, and told them, how you going to get a kid who's not black to play black music?
Flex,
that was the beginning.
Flex said that?
No. Chuck Chillout.
Chuck Chillout said that. Okay.
That was the beginning and end of everything right there. Because the program directors at that time, and I'm going to say their names because I don't give a shit now. They ain't going to do nothing. But Kevin McCabe and Joel Sokowitz, who was probably 2 of the biggest flaming ballerinas of their time, you know, pause, no homo. They were intimidated because Chuck, if you know who Chuck Chillout is, Chuck Chillout is like 6'6". You know, he's on like a monster status. Like, you know, he's a big dude. Okay. So, you know, you got these 2 slim ballerinas, you know, and you got this big black guy telling you authoritatively, like, how you're going to get somebody who's not black to play black music. It kind of like put a stamp on them. So when I got up there, they said, Ed, we're going to go into a different direction. We don't know if we're going to go urban. We'll let you know. And that night, they went over to Club 2000.
Okay.
The rest is history. Pretty much that's where Flex came in there, and that was the beginning and the end of the whole Hot 97 thing. Ricky Ricardo didn't speak up for me. You know, they let it be that Chuck Chillout set the precedent because, you know, I was Puerto Rican and not black. That I shouldn't be the one to showcase hip hop on that station.
So they boxed you out, basically.
Pretty much, you know. Chuck Chillout did a bitch move on me, you know, and I've never approached him about it. Not that I'm scared of him or anything, but, you know, he ain't shit, and he knows that. And, you know, karma's a bitch because he couldn't hold a job after that anyway. I mean, the next time you saw Chuck Chillout was at the VH1 Hip Hop Honors, destroying Ja Rule and Ashanti up there when he went up there. Like, that was the worst fucking DJing I've heard in my life. But that's another story for another day.
All right. So, did you stay in New York at that point, or is that when you came out here?
Nah. Actually, I was able to break a lot of the clubs. Like in New York, you know, the Tunnel. I was the first DJ at the Tunnel. Kilimanjaro's, which became Home Base. Octagon. First DJ to play hip hop and Sound Factory and the Red Zone, 2 predominantly house clubs. And pretty much was basically setting that trend, you know, that the club owners downtown, not on some racist shit, but, you know, with the hip-hop parties brought problems. So they was like, you know what, we need somebody that doesn't play hip-hop, or so they didn't think I did. So when they would hire me, because I used to play a lot of house and freestyle, I would get my sets in there. And kind of like, you know, the insurance policies back in the club days, like the club game in New York was real serious. And the insurance policies was real high for hip-hop events, but for house and freestyles was like next to nothing. You know, so basically I got away with playing more and more hip-hop, and basically was like the go-to guy all in New York City. when it came to that, and because of that, I got a chance to travel the world and go to Germany and France, you know, and those places to play hip hop music.
So it would be a freestyle house set that you mixed hip hop into?
Right, you know, at that time, like, you know, the whole freestyle shit, and then the early ages of house, for me at least, was the Todd Terry years.
Okay.
Where it was a lot of that hard house, the bango shit and shit like that. So, you know, I would play that, and basically house music at that time was just sped up hip hop, because Todd Terry was taking hip hop samples and speeding them up. So
it's funny as we go through this. I mean, because I've already kind of told you our story, just how much we have in common.
Yes, sir.
When we started DJing, it was, you know, we grew up in Chicago. It was late 80s DJing house freestyle. Those are the first records we actually put on turntables.
Right, okay.
But okay, so, you know, back to your story.
I'm telling you, man, I'm interested now. You gonna talk about it? We might as well go there.
You gotta ask what you want to know. But I mean, we came up in the days of hip house.
Oh, Mr. Lee,
Fast
Bad
Eddie.
Boy Bill, Fast Eddie. I mean, Steve Hurley.
Yes.
I mean, all of those guys. Marshall Jefferson, Trax Records.
Yes.
You know, I was part of that. I guess we can do that because we can do that interview on our show. So
okay,
you know, we're gonna do that live via satellite and shit.
That's what's up. But yeah, definitely Bad Boy Bill, big influence. Julian Jumpin' Perez. You know what I'm saying? I don't even remember. I think it was B96 was the station out there in Chicago. And we used to always have our cassette tape ready, and we would record their mixes and just listen to them back. I think it was the blends that really, at least for me, that was what caught my attention.
Right.
Is the skill that went into, you know, I mean, those dudes were at the top of their game.
Well, phenomenal. I'll tell you that. When I went out there, I actually battled against Bad Boy Bill.
Okay.
When Bad Boy Bill was doing DMC, which I did, I think it was 88 or 89. And he was serious. That was the first DJ I seen pull out his dick.
Yep.
Pause, but he pulled his shit out and he was cutting with his shit, you know.
He got kicked off stage.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube, Bad Boy Bill's DMC battle.
Yes.
It's censored, which is cool because I don't think you want to see his dick.
Yeah, I don't think you want to see that.
Just the fact that he did it was crazy.
Yeah.
But that, you know,
that was 89. That was the year that DJ Aladdin went on to represent for the U.S.
Yep. Yo, but that makes me think of another question. You battle Bad Boy Bill. Who else have you battled throughout your career?
Well, all right. I did the DMC thing back in 89.
Okay.
And I didn't do that well. But then, you know, I started, you know, I was on that old battle people. But I came to realize real quick that those DJs was going to get no money. Because they wasn't trying, like, any of the clubs downtown, none of them was, no turntablists, or at that time, they were called battle DJs, was getting any jobs. Those dudes, basically, if you didn't hook up with an artist, you wasn't getting nowhere. And I was fortunate because I was always in the club, so I implemented a little bit of everything. But I've encountered a lot of battles along the way. I mean, man, I was a part of a DJ crew. My first and only time I was down with DJ's Dummies brothers, DJ LS1,
okay,
JC Jace, and we would call the Legion of Doom, and we battled the first semblance of the X-Men back in those days, which was Steve D, Sean C, Johnny Cash, and Dr. Butcher, who was actually the real DJ for Cool G Rap.
The X-Men, like the Executioners?
Yeah, they were originally called the X-Men.
And this is before Rock Raider?
Oh yeah, Rock Raider was like one of the, he was the next tier. Because the original was Steve D, it was Sean C, Johnny Cash, and Dr. Butcher.
Okay.
So that was like the first ever, and that was like the main DJ crew at that time. I mean, you had Clark Kent, and he had what he called the Super Friends. Okay. Like he tried to put together an all-star lineup. He had DJ Scratch himself, a bunch of other, you know, whatever. But none of them, you know, I felt like could really fuck with me at my point, because I was getting that club money, and you know, they was waiting for artists to come out. You know, if you wasn't a producer or whatever, you wasn't getting it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's where I felt separated me from a lot of them. And, you know, a lot of them didn't get it till many years later.
All right, so you were in the club, battles here and there, but your focus was obviously making money.
Yeah, well, you know, at that time, you know, because let me tell you something, the DJ game back in those days in the early 90s, the pay was ridiculous. Like, you know, back then and now we're going to get real disrespectful with the current state of DJs, but back then, you know, DJing was an actual skill. You actually had to have talent. You couldn't go. I mean, they didn't have no BPM counters back in those days.
Right.
You know, the BPMs was you moving your foot, and if it, you know, my whole thing was if you can keep a steady neck bounce, that meant the mix was going well. But if you fell off, that means the mix went off.
Right.
So you know, they were paying like $1,500. Like I was making over $1,000 a night, and I was doing like 5 nights a week. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, they was paying money. It wasn't until the CDs started coming out and they had the double deck CD players, right. And then DJs started getting lazy and became the push button DJs, and would go to club promoters and tell them that you know, you can pay me the same thing Eddie B. Swift is doing. I mean, I can play the same music. You just give me like $200, and that's how that shit started. It spiraled out of control after that because now promoters was like, well, why are we gonna pay this guy this much money? You know, forget that the crowds was always packed. They were charging people $20 a head to get inside clubs with no artists. Like you paying $20 in the club today, that means you're gonna see an artist 2 or 3. Back in those days, it was $20. That was before 12. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it was crazy. That was a lot of money back in those days. And you know, these guys started infiltrating the system and started getting these jobs and really watered it down and pretty much began the decline of the golden era of DJs at that time.
The start of the crab movement.
Yes,
basically.
yes.
But were you putting out mixtapes back then?
I really wasn't a mixtape person. I was. I mean, I made my mixtapes here and there. I did one with Triple C, who at that time debuted Lord Tariq because he was down with the Faculty, which is a crew up there by Trios and Soundview. But really, I started away from the whole mixtape game. Like I would make them for the record store I worked at, but I would never put them under my name because I was making freestyle tapes and shit. I was getting paid $500 a tape, you know, at that time for the master, and they'll make all their copies. And I was thinking I was fucking rich. I'm ready to go start a business for $500. That's how I felt. But you know that, you know, like money came so frequently out there. It came in my hands and went right out. You know.
Were you a fan of the mixtape game out in New York in the 90s?
Really, I wasn't. I really thought, like, I couldn't understand the whole talking during music, like, to appreciate music. I thought, you know, that the people that talked on tapes really took away from the song because half of the tape was shout-outs. The other half was him talking about himself, which, you know, later on, I guess I understood it, you know, but I really didn't rock with that. I actually had beef with... True story with Kid Capri at first, you know, because I disrespected him and I was like, fuck him and all that stuff, not really understanding what it was. And then it came to light when Kid Capri and Doo-Wop started battling. I was the DJ at Rhythm Factory and Kid Capri came in there. That's where he did his infamous diss on Doo-Wop. And like he really put him on hard. And I was actually the DJ for the moment. Like he was doing an acapella. And then my man OG was like, hey, don't impeach the president. So I cut impeach the president. The crowd went wild. It was like 3,000 people at the spot. The rest is just, we tore it down. And, you know, we got cool after that. You know, him, his DJ, Silver D, Money Mark. You know, that's, you know, that was a great time.
Were they just battling on some hip-hop shit or did they have beef?
No, they was on some, like, beef if shit. I see you, I'm going to punch you in your face. Like, Doo-Wop was that kid, that up-and-coming kid who was making his tapes, you know, and he was sounding real tight, in pause. You know, he was really he had his game right, and at that time they had the 4-track Tascam recorders. And he was doing the intros and stuff. Like, you know, Kid Capri basically would go 60-minute tape. It would take 60 minutes to do. 30 minutes each side, go on there, play a couple of records, it was done. Doo-Wop started doing the intros. Right. And, you know, he started, like, you know, basically putting records together and talking through that and then throwing a little verse here and there and started, you know, catching the buzz. And, you know, he kind of like was pushing the envelope. And, you know, what made Capri step his game up. But once he dropped 52 beats, it was over. Nobody could come back to that. I think the closest mixtape ever to come out, which wasn't a direct cause of it, was Tony Touch's the 50
MCs.
Yeah, 50 MCs tape. Right. So,
who were back in that era? Who were your favorite DJs?
Actually, I mean Breakbeat Lou. Okay. You know, he was one of my earlier influences. That's the guy, who put together Ultimate Breaks and Beats. Okay. You know, and actually one of my mentors and so forth. You know, a lot of local guys, you know, Chivo the Pro, Double R, Ted Smooth, Kumaiski, who was, more like a nemesis than he was, somebody to look to. But, those were guys that were rocking at that time. Really didn't care for doo-wop or any of those dudes. Like, none of them wanted to fuck with me because they knew, like, I was that dude on the other side of town that if you got, if you really try to come at me and you couldn't really get into a DJing, you was going to get embarrassed. And I've won many pair of 1200s from DJs who did act up behind that.
Okay.
So, I mean, pretty much all the golden era DJs, man, I looked up to and respected, but it was just a far away of respect. Like, back in those days, every DJ had an ego, Nowadays, I think DJs in general, and I'm glad that we do fraternize right now, but back in those days, there was no fraternizing. There was no friendship among, because, even though there was a handful of DJs, everybody was fighting for jobs and shit. So, you were the better DJ, you got the better jobs, and, people had to wait their turn.
Right. So, I mean, it's always been competitive.
Yes.
So, you were out there in the clubs during the 90s?
Yes. All the 90s, I was that dude. Like, believe me, before Flex was really banging in the tunnel, every major hip-hop party I was a part of.
That's what's up.
And was fortunate to be a part of it. And actually was because of two house dudes, David Morales and Baby Heck, who let me play hip-hop in front of those crowds and allowed that to happen. At that time, like I said, house music was real heavy. David Morales, the name speaks for itself. And, when they put me on, I never forget, we were playing Brand Nubians. That's when they dropped their album. And they dropped probably one of the greatest albums of all time. That had Slow Down, All for One, To the Right, Concerto X, and X Minor. I mean, all of those crazy hits, man. They rocked that night with El General, the original reggaeton whatever. We just call him. He was a reggae artist. He was just a reggae artist who spoke Spanish. But it was them and Brand Nubians. So, and I was that go-to guy where we would feature artists and we started doing video music box. We introduced video music box to the clubs. Like, I saw them do a party and I had reached out to Ralph McDaniels and he was like, yo, $1,000 and you can, we'll come to your party and film. So now, I'll tell you right now, I was the first DJ to bring out Fat Joe in the clubs. First DJ to bring out Wu-Tang. And I actually had them both on the same night. And we paid Fat Joe $400 in a limo ride. It was important that they took a limo from the Bronx to Manhattan. And Wu-Tang, we gave them $600 because there was like a quadrillion of them and a bag of smoke.
Okay.
That had to be involved. But they took the train in. They took the ferry to the train, And probably one of the greatest moments. And I remember when I started rocking with Raekwon years after, I said, yo, Ray, man, you don't remember that day. And he was like, when I told him, but like, I was real specific. And he was like, wow, Ed. And, I thought he's going to like, all right, Ed, that was foul, man. I really want to hear that story. But, it was what it was, man. I mean, the youngsters, Naughty by Nature, I was the part of bringing them out for the first time with Kumai Ski out to the Rhythm Factory. Circle Club, we brought EPMD to the Bronx for the first time. X-Clan, I ain't in front. X-Clan tore it down, the Rhythm Factory. We was bringing out artists every month. Every week we was doing different artists in the clubs. Tribe Called Quest.